Welcome back, or hi. Thank you for joining for the first time. Today we are on the third episode of a series called Leading from the Edge. And I want to share something with you. I was doing a conference in Austin and teaching one of my workshops called Coaching from the Edge. And I learned something very interesting from the participants. You see, the topic was received well. And after the workshop, one of them asked me, where did the leading from the edge concept come from? Well, I gave her the Cliff Note version, and her response was quite surprising. She stated, I really enjoyed today's workshop. And I have some great takeaways that I'm going to put into action as soon as I get back to the office. However, I just wish I would have attended your workshop on how leading from the edge was created. While what I learned today was good, I feel like I'm missing a piece. So I sat back and I thought about it and drive home. And I said, maybe I should put that on the podcast. So today we are going to go all the way back to the foundation of my leadership concept. I want to make sure that as we continue to build upon this concept throughout the different episodes, let's lay the foundation and make sure we're all on the same page. Welcome to Purpose.Presence.People. Leadership isn't what it used to be. The pressure is higher, the clarity is lower, and the expectations haven't changed. I'm Antrea Dowd, a leadership expert with over 30 years of experience across healthcare, education, and organizational leadership. I've led teams on the front lines, developed leaders across systems, and spent my career helping people navigate what leadership really looks like when things get hard. This is Purpose, Presence, People, where we don't just talk about leadership, we talk about how to lead in the middle of pressure and uncertainty and real-world challenges. Because leadership isn't proven when things are easy. It's revealed at the edge. Let's get started. Leading from the edge. Leadership has changed. Now what? I'm Antrea Dowd, and this is where we talk about what leadership really looks like when things get hard. You see, leadership has changed. Not gradually, not subtly, but completely. Totally, completely different. I have been in leadership for over 20 years, and I can definitely tell you that leading today is completely different than it was when I first became a leader. Because somewhere along the way, the job stopped being about having all the answers. And it started being about leading. Now you may say, Antrea, leadership has always been about leading. And yes, that is true. But I'm saying leading when there are no clear answers. And the truth is, nobody trained you for this version of leadership. Well, at least I didn't learn it in my leadership journey or any of the classes that I took. So if you ever felt like the expectations have increased, but support didn't. If you've ever walked into a room and realized everyone was looking at you for answers, but you were still trying to figure it out. This conversation is for you. And so I want to start with what we feel, but don't always say, right? We're just going to put it out there. Leadership today kind of feels like you're expected to run a marathon while solving a puzzle, while someone keeps changing the pieces on you, and they're asking, well, why are you behind? Why did you miss that deadline? You see, the teams you're leading are tired. We work in systems that are stretched to the max. We have goals and expectations that did not shrink when the team did. And somehow, amongst all of that, you are still expected to show up clear, confident, and steady. That's the part nobody talks about and nobody prepares you for. There's another part of leadership that doesn't get talked about enough, I feel. And it's the part that you carry. The part where you're making decisions that impact people's lives. And you're also trying to balance what the organization needs and what your team needs. And then also what you believe is right. And guess what? Sometimes those things don't align. And nobody tells you what to do in those moments. And if we're going to be honest here, when you walk into that room and people are looking at you, you can feel it. They're waiting for direction. They're waiting for answers. But you're still trying to make sense of it yourself. That moment isn't failure to lead. That is the reality of leadership today. I remember sitting with a decision that I knew was right for the organization, but I also knew it was going to be hard on my team. And I sat there thinking, wow, there is no version of this that's going to feel good. That's leadership. Leadership isn't hard because you don't know what to do. It's hard because sometimes every option has a cost. My epiphany, if you so to speak, came along midway through my leadership journey. I was leading a team and everything felt like it was coming at us at once. We were short-staffed, the expectations were high, and the pressure was constant. And I remember walking into a meeting and the room suddenly got quiet. Now, as a leader, you know when you walk into the room and everybody gets quiet, they're doing one or two things. You were the topic of conversation, or they're waiting to hear what you have to say. They're looking for direction. That's what they're waiting on, right? They're waiting on answers. And in that moment, I didn't have any clear answers. I mean, I had pieces. I had instincts that I was pulling on from previous experiences, but it was scary that I didn't have certainty. And for a second, I hesitated to make a decision because somewhere along the way, we as leaders were taught that we are supposed to know everything. That's why we're leaders. We're taught that we need to have all of the answers. But in that moment, I didn't. But I still had to make a decision. Do I wait? Or do I lead anyway? Do I lead blindly through uncertainty? And that moment changed how I see leadership. Because I realized that leadership isn't about having all of the answers. It's about holding the tension. How do you respond in the moment of stress? Now, let me make this very clear. It wasn't that one incident where I had that epiphany and I'm like, let me go ahead and write this framework. There were days later on in my journey that I would leave work and sit in my car for a moment before going into my house. Just taking a breath, doing what I call a woosah moment. And it wasn't because I didn't love what I was doing, because I truly do. It was because I was carrying decisions that didn't have clean answers. Do I push performance or protect my team? Do I give clarity when things aren't fully clear? Do I stay steady when everything around me feels uncertain? That's when it clicked. The problem wasn't that I didn't know how to lead. I was very good at that. The problem was I was struggling to lead in tension. Tension created from the uncertainty of not really knowing what to do. Now, this is where most leadership conversations miss the mark, right? Because you hear someone say this and we're like, okay, let's give them some tools. We always try to solve leadership issues with tools. We give new communication tools. We give new coaching tools, accountability frameworks. Now, don't get me wrong. Those are important and they matter, but they don't solve this problem. Because you see, this isn't a skill problem. The real challenge is pressure. So it's not a skill. It's a tension problem. Once I understood that, I sat back and I started observing my colleagues, the leaders that I coached, and I began to see patterns across different teams, across different types of leaders, even across different organizations. Here's the thing. The same tensions showing up over and over and over again. I felt like it was the same situation, just different players. And I began to think, what can I do to change this? Or to at least help leaders through it, right? I love a good puzzle. And so I dove in. How do I lead people through this? Well, that's where leading from the edge concept comes from. Because what I saw over and over and over again wasn't that leaders were failing. They were highly capable leaders. It's just they were navigating competing realities. They were trying to be clear in uncertainty, trying to remain confident under strain. They were focused on performance while still taking care of people, trying to remain stable in the middle of transformation. The edge is where leadership actually happens. Let me break it down. It is the space where there's no perfect answer. The pressure is real, and your leadership is being watched very, very closely. It's the uncomfortable space we try to avoid. And here's the truth. You don't get to choose one. You have to lead in both at the same time. And once you understand that you must step to the edge of leadership, everything changes. My concept has 4 tensions. I'm going to cover them now. I want to show you and explain in detail what I mean. The number 1 tension, clarity versus uncertainty. You are expected to provide direction while still trying to figure things out yourself. And what I have found is that most leaders in that moment will wait. They wait until things are clearer. Now, I get that you may not want to make a decision and then have to backtrack it later. No one likes boomerang leadership. But silence doesn't create safety. It backfires. It actually creates anxiety amongst your team. You give your team time to tell themselves a story about what's going on. This increases the tension, not decrease. The second tension, confidence versus strain. You're expected to show up confident while carrying pressure people don't see. And the truth is, leadership can feel heavy and uncomfortable, but your team feels what you bring into the room. So you must get comfortable with being uncomfortable so that you don't bring that energy into the room with your team. Tension 3, performance versus people. You're expected to deliver results without losing your team. And under pressure, leaders tend to choose one. They either push performance or they protect their people. But here's the thing. Strong leaders learn how to do both. Tension number 4, stability versus transformation. Everything is changing and your team can feel it. And in those moments, they don't look for perfection. They look for stability. They look for us to make sense of today. That space where all of these tensions exist is called the edge. Because now, when you're at the edge, you stop waiting for perfection. You stop waiting for perfect conditions, and you start becoming the kind of leader who can stand in the middle of it, in the midst of chaos, and lead from that place. Because here's the thing, your team, you can write strategy all day long. They're not watching your strategy. They're watching your stability. They're watching how you respond, how you show up, how you lead when things are unclear. And I'm sorry. The truth is, as a leader, you don't get to choose just one. You have to lead in both at the same time. So, leading from the edge is not a skill. It's who you become when leadership gets hard. And so, let's apply this to your life. I want you to think about something you're dealing with right now. A decision, a situation, a conversation you've been avoiding. Now ask yourself, what tension am I in? Am I waiting for clarity when I need to communicate? Am I holding strain without regulating it? Am I choosing people and avoiding performance, or pushing performance at the expense of my people? Having that type of awareness will change how you lead. Because leadership is no longer about control. It's about how you show up in the moments when control doesn't exist. Your team does not need perfection. They need presence. They don't need us to have all of the answers. They need us to feel that you can hold the moment. Leadership is not proven when things are easy. It's revealed at the edge. In our next episode, we're going to step a little bit deeper into that uncomfortable space and really talk about what the edge actually looks like. Because most leaders are currently standing in it right now, and you don't even realize it. What you're hearing in this series is part of a larger body of work I've been building, Leading from the Edge, a framework designed to help leaders sustain confidence in the middle of pressure, uncertainty, and constant change. This is more than a conversation. It's a book that's coming, and a body of work that is already being taught inside organizations, inside leadership teams, and in rooms where leadership gets real. If this resonates with you, if you're leading a team or developing leaders and you know they're navigating this kind of pressure, you can learn more about Leading from the Edge or book me to bring this work into your organization. Because leadership has changed, and the leaders who succeed will be the ones who learn how to lead at the edge.